Welcome back to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. I'm your host, Virginia Elder, and today we've got a very special guest whose career has spanned journalism, public service, agency leadership, and now podcasting. Mike Swenson is a nationally recognized leader in crisis management and cause branding. He's the founder of Barkley Public Relations, a firm that grew from a small regional shop into a national powerhouse. Before that, he served as press secretary to the governor of Kansas, and he even began his career as a broadcast journalist in both radio and TV. Mike brings decades of wisdom on communication, crisis response, and building trust. And he's also the co-host of the Kansas City Marketing Legends podcast, which highlights the stories and people behind one of the most creative cities in the country. As you look at marketing your business, he's somebody you might want to know. In our conversation, you'll hear how Mike helps small business owners prepare for the unexpected with his online course, Crisis Track. You'll also learn his podcasting approach, why niching down matters, how he brings community partners on board, and the creative way he batches and launches each season, complete with a kickoff party. I'm not even kidding. Stick around because whether you're podcasting to grow your business, you're curious about protecting your brand, or you're still looking for the perfect recording and publishing scheduling advice, Mike shares lessons you don't want to miss. You're listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals, the show where smart advisors, planners, CPAs, and money experts learn how to use podcasting as their most powerful marketing tool. I'm Virginia Elder, podcast strategist and founder of Podcast Abundance. Since 2019, I've helped financial professionals stop wasting time on random marketing tactics and instead build a podcast that increases authority, expands reach, and consistently drives leads. Before we jump in, I've got something that will change the way you think about your podcast. The most important 30 seconds of your show happens right after someone hits play. And most hosts have no idea what to say, how to make an impact, or how to capture the right listener that quickly. That's why I created the Attraction Messaging Blueprint, your simple guide to crafting a strong trailer, a tight 30-second intro, and a clear outro that actually generates leads for your business. Grab yours today at podcastabundance.com/attraction messaging blueprint. Mike, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Virginia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. You have spent many years in the PR and journalism and marketing space, but then I also noticed you have Crisis Track. Could you give us just like a quick rundown of what that is? I think it could be really useful to some of the listeners.
Sure. Well, Crisis Track is a process we created at the PR firm that I started in the late 80s, but early 90s, we were hired by a fast-growing fast food brand that was in about 15 states at the time, but today they're nationwide. But at that time, in the early 90s, as they were growing, their head of PR came to me and said, she said, I'm really worried that we're not ready, because she understood, as did I, that it takes one person at one of their restaurants, could be in a small town, to do something stupid. We'll just use that word. We'll use that. Creative word there. Do something dumb and stupid and have it turn into a brand crisis. And so we sat in a room for 3 days and hammered out this process with the foundation of it being, how do we keep it simple? How do we make sure that there's just as few steps as possible? We both had seen crisis plans up on the shelves of companies, and nobody reads them. And so let's keep it simple. What are the fewest steps we need to worry about? So it was real quick. I'll just run through them. Number one was you have to create your team. And if you're a smaller company, 5 people or less, then it's probably everybody on your team. If you're 15, 20 people, then you need to select the 4 or 5 people that can be the crisis team. And that is now part of their responsibility. It's part of their job description. Then we go through the process of identifying all the risks that can happen to a company. That was always an eye-opening experience whenever we took a company through that process, because you would bring in your set of risks, I would bring in my set. Some of those would overlap. We'd have some of the same ones, but inevitably you'd have a lot different ones that I'd never even thought of, and vice versa. So now we've got up on the wall, literally the big Post-it notes, and old school, we don't want to put it up on a screen. We want to flood the room, because once everybody in the room realizes that, oh my God, any of these things could happen to us, they now get it. So that second step is the one that kind of locks them in. Third step, walk us through a recent crisis. How did you handle it? What were the steps you took? We learn a lot from that process. Fourth step is, now let's design a process. What are the fundamental steps we take regardless of the crisis every time? Fourth step, go back to all of our risks, create messages for each one of those. 3 to 5 key messages for every one of the risks. If there's 100 of them, there's going to be 100 messages. Last one, who's going to be the spokesperson, the ongoing spokesperson in time of crisis, and we get that person trained and ready to go. 5 steps. You know who's going to handle it. You know what could possibly go wrong. You now know the first X number of steps you're going to take regardless, so that gets you ahead of the game. Fourth, you have a message ready, because one of the worst things that can happen, especially in this day and age with social media, and a crisis is not going to wait 24 hours. It's going to wait 10 minutes. We need to have something to say right away. We don't want to be in a room for an hour haggling over what we're going to say. No, we've got our key message that we've all agreed to. Just put that into a statement, get it out as fast as we can through the person we've designated. There's no reason for any company not to have crisis planning as part of their ongoing operations. And if you're an entrepreneur listening and ready to start a new company, your business plan should have crisis planning process in it. Believe me, your investors will be very impressed that you've thought about that before you even open the doors.
When we think about crises that could happen, what are some examples? Like if someone is sitting there right now going, okay, well, I have a money therapy practice, right? Or something, I'm an independent financial advisor, whatever I am, what could my possible crises be? Like, why would I need this?
Sure. I mean, in the financial world, you could have an employee that commits embezzlement or fraud, misuse of a client's investments. They happen. I mean, we've all read stories about that happening to companies of all sizes in the financial world. You can also have crises happen to you. So it's not your fault. It's not something you caused, but it could be one of your business partners. So maybe it's a bank you work with. Something happens at that bank that now reflects on you because you're a customer of theirs. You could have one of your clients get in the news for all the wrong reasons. And for whatever reason, it comes out that that person is a client of your firm. And so now that's reflecting on you, and you have to make decisions on how you're going to handle that. So there's all kinds of things like that. Then you have, again, things that happen to you, natural disasters, things like that. I mean, if you're, let's say you have 15 people and you're employed, you got an office building, you're in Florida, and a hurricane hits, and the building's gone. Hopefully they've thought of a operational plan for what they do if they lose their office space. How do they keep working? But have they thought of a communications plan for how do they communicate to their customers, to their prospects, and maybe most importantly to their employees? Employees become really the most important audience in a crisis, because if I'm working for a financial firm, I'm an advisor, and I'm a 15, 20 person firm. And something happens, either we caused it or it's happened to us, as I talked about. I need to know that the company I'm working for is handling it and managing it properly, and that we're on top of it. We're being transparent. We're being open. I need to be able to go to my clients, my client base, and assure them that their portfolios are just fine. That we're going to continue operations, or yes, this happened and we had a financial issue happened to someone else. One of my fellow advisors committed some wrongdoing, but now that affects me because we work for the same company, and it's the brand on the door, and in the financial world, it's my name. It's not just the company I work for, Acme Financial Advisors. It's my name. It's Mike Swenson who's on the line because I've got customers out there that are going, what's going on? So, and prospects. I mean, think about people you're courting and something bad happens and you don't handle it well. Well, that reflects on perhaps how people look at you as a company that you could trust and that has the credibility to do it. And trust and credibility are everything. And if you manage a crisis well, you come out stronger. If you don't, bad things can happen to your business.
Well, and I think it's not whether a crisis will happen or could happen. I mean, of course it can, but it's also, and we've all witnessed it, where the public feels like, sure, a crisis happened, but the bigger problem was that you didn't even handle it right. Like the statements weren't made, you didn't say the right thing in the statement, action wasn't taken swiftly enough. I know back in 2020-ish, I witnessed a big conference go through a massive issue. It came out that some speakers were being paid differently than other speakers, and it really looked like a race issue, and that reflected very badly. And especially since a lot of the community was Black, Hispanic, various minorities. And so a lot of those people left, and that really affected not just the quality of the conference, because then you didn't have that collaboration that was possible before, but of course, like attendance, ticket sales, sponsorships, the availability of vendors. And so it's almost always not just that the bad thing happened, but it's the way that it was handled. And so I think this is a really useful tool.
The example you're using is a great example of something happening to a lot of people. I mean, the conference organizers made a mistake, and yet I'm in the vendor hall, and now my opportunity has been diminished because there's fewer people there, and it's out in the news, and people are saying bad things, and I've got my customers know I'm there.
Yeah, it's that distrust by association. Like you said earlier with the example of someone as a part of your company, it wasn't you, but someone did something and you're associated. So
right.
Bad on you.
Yeah.
And then same thing. It's, I'm a part of this organization. I've talked about it openly, that I go, that I love it. And then now it's in the news. Like, ooh, so it's a challenge there for all small business owners, I think, to even be aware of the things that could happen, because we've already got enough to worry about. So I love that you have this available for us.
One quick footnote, just on something you just said, not just within a company that somebody does something, a colleague, but if something happens to a financial advising company or someone in our space, that also happens to us, because now customers are reading or hearing about that, seeing it on social media platforms. And so naturally, as a customer, I'm going to go, well, I know that's company A over here and I'm with company B, but it plants a slight seed of doubt. Could that happen to my advisor? And so you have to think about it in terms of it's great, it happened to them. Good, that's a competition. That'll help us. Well, at the same time, you may have somebody in your portfolio that's saying, wow, do I need to be more careful about who I select? And I need to, and maybe a customer calls me up, a client calls me up and says, hey, tell me more about this. Could this ever happen? And so you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready, even when it has nothing whatsoever to do with you. You've got to be ready to address, especially in the financial world, because this is important work being done, as a retired person, believe me, I'm paying close attention to what's going on and to my financial advisor's advice. And so it's important to be out there, transparent, trusting, and build that credibility.
So I want to borrow your marketing mind just a little bit there. And when we see a competitor go through something, it's not to take advantage of the situation, but it's a great opportunity for you to make a statement about your business and to make sure that things are in place in your business that either differentiates you from that other situation or that other firm, and or to go ahead and take the initiative and reach out to your clients, your prospects, and shore up that trust, right? So it's an opportunity for additional communication with your people. And that could also like tread on this line of a crisis, right? You're taking a crisis that's happening out there and going, hey guys, we're different because we have this and this and this in place. And we are aware of that. We want you to know that we have these, communications and whatever it is that you have set up. So using that marketing PR background, what else could you say about, I guess, positioning yourself in that manner?
Yeah, I think the financial space is interesting because it holds a place where I think the one-to-one marketing is as important as it is in any business. And think of every conversation that you're having with a client as a potential to market. In the financial world, potentially there's potential crisis every day when the stock market bell rings. I'm pretty passive with my advisor. I mean, we communicate and everything, but I know people who are like on the phone with their advisor 3 or 4 times a day. And you know what? That's how they like to operate. So now you have four times a day, you're going to have a chance to market. And that's how you should think about it. It's every opportunity, every conversation is an opportunity it may be to simply calm someone down, or it may be an opportunity to, well, if you're worried about this investment, let me tell you why you shouldn't be, and here's the reasons. But if you are worried about it, here's 2 or 3 more options. We can move some of that around. Here's why this might make you feel better. Now, I still think we're fine where we are, but you're the client.
Hey there, quick sidebar to this episode. Most business owners jump into podcasting with a concept and maybe even a guest list, but zero plan or comfort with what they're going to say during their intro, outro, or trailer. And these are the most important segments for your podcast because they either hook your ideal listener or lose them fast. The Attraction Messaging Blueprint fixes that. Inside, you'll learn the 4 key components for writing a memorable intro, a snappy outro, and a powerful trailer episode. You get examples, space to draft and refine your scripts, and a final checklist so you don't miss a thing. If you want your podcast to stand out and actually generate leads for your business, this is where your strategy starts. Download it for free today at podcastabundance.com/attraction-messaging-blueprint.
I think it's a space, as I said, that just presents so many one-to-one marketing. And then now you've got, okay, let's expand. Now we're marketing the organization. When something bad happens to one of our competitors, it does create an opportunity. We knew who the other agency's clients were. And if something was going awry, perhaps we make a contact because maybe we have a relationship that we've been developing with somebody in that. But, now looks like there's trouble. Well, of course, we're going to start planting the seeds of, I know you may not be looking right now, but if you are, we'd love to talk to you. And so I think that's the same thing applies in the financial world is if one of our competitors has something happen to them, a crisis or whatever that was caused by them, and it hurts their credibility, I guarantee you, everybody that's listening to this knows who their competitors' clients are, or at least some of them, because that's what clients do. We're out there talking about, well, here's who I work with, and here's why I love them, and da-da-da-da-da, and somebody else might say, well, I've worked with them, or I heard they weren't that good. Well, so we're all talking as clients. Well, I'm sure all the financial advisors are talking to. So what's to keep us, other than if there's some ethical, legal issue? It's an opportunity to plant a seed, and it doesn't have to be like an aggressive approach, but it has to be with, I've been with the same advisor for a long time now, but I still get inquiries from others that say, "Hey, can we talk?" And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I think the one-to-one marketing thing of this of the financial world is really amazing and makes it such a different place than. But yeah, then we collectively, how do we market ourselves? And the podcast, doing podcasts is a great way for a financial person because there's so much content, so much for them to talk about. If it's, let's say it's a weekly podcast, well, if they do it on a Friday after the markets are closed, then they have this whole week of content that has happened and they can pull out the trends. Hopefully your customers listen to it, but chances are it's going to be more non-customers than customers. I started out in radio and television, so to me, podcasting is like, this is great. I'm back to kind of doing what I used to do when I first started out.
Yeah. So that's a really cool point is that, through all of your experience, you've gotten to see this entire online media space change, radio, TV, into podcasting, into YouTube. Along those lines, I think it's so much more accessible to quote unquote normal people, right? To be able to produce content, to be able to get your voice out there. And you've even started a podcast yourself. So if you'll share a little bit about why you did that, what made you decide to do that, what was the intention behind it?
It's been fascinating to be a part of this business as everything has changed. What you are doing right now, we wouldn't have thought of even maybe 10 years ago. And it's targeted audiences. Everybody's podcasts are targeting certain groups. So now it's very much about that micro targeting, that one-to-one. I decided to do a podcast about a good friend of mine, Sam Mears, who has been in the advertising business in Kansas City for a long time. Kansas City has such a great history, marketing, PR, advertising community. It's been around for a long time. There's agencies that existed in the 50s and 60s that are no longer with us, but without those agencies, a lot of us wouldn't be here because that built up. And so it was a great story to tell. And we decided to finally do it. The trigger for me was that one of my guys that I worked for about a year only, but he had such an influence on me, Howard Boasberg, great PR executive in Kansas City and nationally, but he passed away. And Sam and I have been talking about doing something, and we decided on a podcast, but we hadn't gotten ourselves going yet. And when Howard passed away, it was like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to lose these people. We can talk, those of us who worked with Howard, we could talk about them, but it's not like hearing their story from them. So we start. So we're in the middle of our second season. We're planning our third season. A lot of young folks are listening, and they're learning where the agencies they work for came from, how they started. They're hearing the stories. So our little podcast in Kansas City has had an impact on people. We're only in our second season, but it's slowly building an audience, and we're starting to hear about it more and more. But that's what the folks in the financial world need to think about. I mean, that's what you can do with a podcast is you can not broadcast, you can narrowcast to a very specific group of people who you're targeting. Your firm may have a very specific area within the financial structure that you're targeting. Cater to people who can become your clients and build a client base, not just having to go out and cold call all the time, but being able to say, send an email out or a text and say, hey, if you got to listen to this week's podcast, I'm talking about something you and I discussed a month ago. Still trying to reel this person in. You brought it up at our last meeting. I decided to do a whole podcast on it. So listen to it and then let's talk again.
And that's kind of why I fell in love with podcasting, was because I listened to it and I noticed this level of trust that I felt as a listener. When you find a host that you like, you find a show and content that you like, and you kind of dive in and binge listen and do everything they say and follow all the instructions, and it actually helps. So that was definitely why I fell in love with it. I love how you created your show as not necessarily because you're retired, you're not trying to attract new clients, but you're really trying to support and continue to foster the industry that you came from. And whether it's resources or just, even the stories that can be inspiring and exciting. And like you said, so the young people listening and coming into their marketing careers kind of understand like where it all came from and who built what and why and what their perspective was. And I think that's a really neat layer to being able to create content is like supporting that industry.
Yeah, it's so rewarding when we hear from people that it's like, I never knew how this came to be. I never knew how this agency came to be. And we also talk to corporate people. So we're not just talking to agencies, we're talking to people who worked within the headquarters, corporate headquarters here in Kansas City, Hallmark and Sprint. And I mean, Sprint's not one of them, but Sprint was huge for so long in Kansas City. It was the largest employer for a decade at least. So you have people who worked at all these corporations, Marion Labs, AMC is here. So we also have people who are on the corporate side in marketing and PR to tell the client side of the story, which is interesting. And we've interviewed people who've gone back and forth between agency and client, which is always fascinating because I would never have been good in a corporation. I always refer to myself as the pinball. I need to be zigzagging around every day, solving problems and moving on to the next one. And corporations, I might not have lasted as long as I did.
I gotcha. So as you have watched online media change over these past many, many years, did you ever feel like a resistance to the change? And I would love to hear about how you navigated that, or if you watched someone navigate that, because I think financial professionals in general are just not marketers. They may not be comfortable on camera. They may not be comfortable behind a mic, but to be able to get out there and create the trust, potential clients really do want to hear from you as an individual, as the person that they're going to be working with. So how can they navigate that resistance to getting on YouTube, getting on a podcast, even just guesting on podcasts? I feel like is like a nice baby step before hosting your own show. So yeah, just if you'll share a little bit about that resistance to change.
I was lucky because I don't think I ever resisted change. But here's the deal: I was also working with younger people all the time, who were as we hired the next batch of 20 somethings to come in and begin their career. They were already at a certain place with technology as their base. I mean, as their foundation. They're here. I mean, I had to learn everything. I don't feel like I ever resisted, but it would be easy to do. But I was lucky with always with younger folks coming in and pushing us forward. Here's where we need to be going. And my only resistance would be, if there's a financial component to the change, and we need to consider that before we just invest wholeheartedly in something. So let's think this through and analyze it and make sure it's a good investment. So that might be where I would have, slowed the train down a bit. But just prove to me why we need to do it, and that the investment will be more than worth the while. And so we would do it. We were part of a larger ad agency, and we would a lot of times in the PR firm be the ones who would guinea pig stuff. So that's how I guess I can say I wasn't resistant to change, but I was always being pushed, and that's good. It's good. And so I think to those who are older in the financial business still, and you're bringing in younger people, listen to them, because the 20 somethings today have another level base that they're working from. And, to them, Facebook is old news. TikTok's probably going to be old news in 2 years, but because the next big thing will come along. But younger folks, they're in tune with all that. And then you got to figure out how can we use this to our advantage in marketing our financial firm? Should we be using social media? Not just podcasting, but should we be picking a social media platform? And obviously LinkedIn would be an obvious one they should be involved in. But how are you using LinkedIn? Are you just passive about it and just kind of looking at things and liking things? Or are you using it for the promotion of your firm and the promotion of your ideas, your approach, how you like to do business, and why you should be doing business with us? And using LinkedIn can be a valuable tool. And of course, you put your podcast up on it. So I think that's one advice I would say is don't be resistant. Make sure you listen. I feel like I did that pretty well. There may be people that would argue if they're somebody that works for me and listen, wait a minute, you weren't always so. But I feel like I was pretty good. But it was because I was being shown the way of what's next.
Yeah, and that follows the advice of some other, like you said, a little bit older financial advisors. They've built a good sized firm under them, and they do have a lot of young people working for them. And one that comes to mind told me straight out, I leave things up to them. If they come to me with an idea and it has viability and I think it'll work, I let them run with it because I'm old. Like you said it straight up, like I'm old. I don't know the way the world works today and they do. And so um building that team and trying to stay up on some education on how these different platforms work is helpful, but I love that advice of allowing that younger crowd of, employees or contractors or however you have things structured to present ideas at least in an open kind of way that they feel could be accepted. And that really naturally turns us back around to the niche conversation. You mentioned even using LinkedIn, your ideas, your perspective, the way you like to do business, because marketing in the financial space can get touchy sometimes. There is a compliance review process on the content that you produce. And there is still the myth out there that financial advisors cannot have podcasts. I've had someone recently told me, like, you're crazy. I don't even know what you do because real financial advisors can't have podcasts. And that's completely false. There are plenty that I have worked for and put their content through compliance for years and years now. And so it becomes the question of what you're creating, how you're creating it, the perspective that it's created. You can talk about how you like to do business and how you help people and your perspective on this financial thing that's in the news or a market review, like you mentioned earlier. There are things that you can talk about. You're not advising exactly how someone should invest. Of course, that's not going to pass compliance because not everyone should follow that advice. It should be personalized based on that person's situation. So, looking at your content as, again, standing out, making yourself unique, sharing your perspective, potentially using a crisis that you've seen happen before and making sure that your firm and your perspective stands out as different, right? I think that's a great opportunity to market yourself there. So I would love to hear a little more about your niche for your podcast, which I know is different, but I think there's always little nuggets that we can take as you support the marketing industry right now, sharing these stories from people who've been in it and done it for a long time. What has the growth of your show looked like? What have you tried? What has worked? Kind of give me the back end of like, how are you building an audience?
We're not advertising it. We're not trying to monetize it. So when we finally got going with the first season, we were using the agency I used to work at, and Sam is still with, Barkley, to use their podcast studio to record. And then we with good fortune, have Evolution Audio in Kansas City, one of the leading audio producing companies in town, agreed to produce all the episodes. By the second season, they allowed us just to come in their studio and do them. So now we do all of our episodes in Evolution Audio Studios. And so they signed on because, and they're not making any money on it, but they saw the value of being involved in this effort. Springboard Creative, local creative shop, does all of our look and feel, build our website, and again, because Kevin wanted to be involved in this project. And then we got the local ad club and the local chapter of PRSA, Public Relations Society of America, to help us promote it. So I think we did 10 episodes the first season. We did 13. I think episode 9 is coming up. We produce them all in the fall and get them all produced before the end of the year. Then everybody has time to produce all the stuff, our two partners. And then we have launched it, both of them in May with a big launch party. Two different agencies have hosted us. We invite all of the, this year we had all of the season 2 legends there, and then we had invited back all of season 1's legends, and most everyone showed up, and they bring a guest, and then we open it up. And this is where the younger folks come in. They come to this event, and there's food and beverage, of course. As long as there's food and beverage, you can get anybody there. So don't forget the food and beverage. But that's how we kind of built it, and we've just been building the audience slowly. We don't have huge numbers, but we've got consistent numbers, and it's growing. And one of the interesting things that's happened to us is that both Sam and I have friends who are not in the business at all. So this would be like a financial podcaster who has somebody who's a franchisee for 5 fast food restaurants, but they're buddies, they talk to each other all the time. And that person starts listening because in our case, it was people said, well, it's just good business stuff. There's good lessons about starting, running, owning a business, exiting a business, because we've had a lot of situations where a lot of people have retired. So we talk about the exit process. Well, that can be applied to any business. And then the other group of people that's interesting that are not tied into it are people who are lifelong Kansas Cityans, and they're looking at it as this is just a great little slice of history of how Kansas City grew up and came to be, and things happened in Kansas City, and these were the people who were responsible for it. So our audience is definitely the advertising, marketing, PR community, but it's also now people who just are business people and are interested in it, and it's Kansas Cityans who are like, God, yeah, I remember that happened. Now I know why it happened. So it's been interesting. So we're just kind of slowly growing. We're like I said, we're planning season 3 right now. We've got our asks out. We've had about 6 responses so far. And we'll start the process again. We have no idea how long we're going to do this. At the end of season 2, we said, well, we'll talk in August and decide if we want to do season 3. And so we just kind of, we're finished. Everything's put to bed. We're, okay, we can just listen to. And so we release them every 2 weeks. We go every other Wednesday. We release an episode. And then we promote it. Sam and I promote it across our social channels, as do the Ad Club and PRSA. But that's all the marketing we're doing around. We aren't, beyond that. But it's building very slowly.
It's almost this grassroots effort. And I want to highlight a couple of things that I heard, even just through that could be lessons that people want to take and run with it. That's great. The first thing I heard is that as you are looking for a recording studio, as you're looking for someone to do graphics, all these things, people are signing on to your project because it's this idea that they can get behind, that they want to be a part of. And so whether you want to say, oh, that's a tagline, that's your business's name or your podcast name, or whatever it is, you're going to attract people to be involved with your project, whether they're actually contributing or whether they're just a fan or a listener and they just like talk about your show to their friends or whatever it is. It's this concept of having an idea that people want to stand behind and they want to put their name on. So I think that's really important when you're thinking about, a concept for your show. Like I said, it could be a tagline for your business, whatever it is, but people are really looking for that concept. And then the other piece that I love is you have this really cool batching, production, launch party, promotion. It's almost like you could divide that into quarters of the year or...
Just about does.
Okay.
Because because again, we're already planning season 3. We still have 3 or 4 episodes of season 2 to roll out. Season 2 won't finish until deep in October. And by then we'll be starting to record. Well, we do pre-calls. That's the other thing that we learned from season 1. Season 1, we did no pre-calls. And it was fine. It worked out great. But we decided for season 2 we would do pre-call. So we just do that on a Zoom. And we would have an AI bot record the whole thing. And then we can go through that record and we can distill it down and then send the legend. Here's a recap of our, an outline of our pre-call, and here's the areas we're going to focus in on. So now we got a little bit of a structure to it. Doesn't mean we stick to that structure because, believe me, I'm great at going off on tangents. So I'm so
Same.
so that's all. I'll take responsibility. But the pre-call became a really important ad for season 2, and now it's like as long as we're doing it, we'll do that. And it takes some investment of time because those calls are probably usually about an hour, but we keep our podcasts to an hour. That's a good workout time. Somebody's going for a walk in the morning. What do they have time to listen to? Pre-call was really important to add. So
That's really good advice as well, because it is tough sometimes to get on. Like you and I met through Podmatch. And so there's a great profile with links I can find almost anything about you on there. So I'm able to like study that before we get on.
And likewise, I was able to look at your profile. So I know generally, and I'll tell you what, interesting. And this may be something people think about inviting guests on. So I looked at yours, listened to one of your podcasts, and I thought, it's so focused that it may not be, but you know what, I'm gonna try anyway. And whatever I did in my pitch, I tried to personalize a little bit and say, here's why I think I'd be a good guest for financial related businesses, because they're small businesses and bad things are going to happen to you. I hate to tell you, folks, bad things are going to happen. Hope they don't. Not wishing for it, but I think that's interesting. I mean, it's good to have information ahead of time on both the host and the guest.
And that's where that pre-call is serving you now. So Podmatch is a tool, but if you don't have that, or even if you do have that, you could do these pre-calls. But I love this idea of batching your recordings, sending them off to production, and then having a party to launch it. Like, that's so cool. And I think that's like
marketing people. We're all about events. We're all about events.
Yeah.
So,
That's such a cool idea that I feel like someone could tweak and replicate with their client base, with the people they had on their show. Maybe even like, let's just say if you're a financial advisor, you have several people that have retired that are still very happy with you. I mean, you could invite these retirees in and
it's a happy hour. You do it at 5:00, or 5:30. You start it after.
That could be so fun.
They both have been great. And again, 2 agencies agreed to host. Barclay hosted the first year. Company in Kansas City, Trozzolo, hosted us this year in their space. And it just brings everybody together. And then and it's open to anybody who wants to show up. We put the invites out, and we're not for sure how many are going to show, because people just walk in too. But it's been fun. They both have been fun, and it's bringing people together in a shared space. We all share something, and it's me retired, and then there's a 25-year-old that just starting their career. But we share the fact that we work in this city, in a business that has a rich history, and what Sam and I are doing is helping people understand what the rich history was. It took us 10 seconds to decide not to write a book.
Oh.
So and Sam and I are both. Sam's real involved with the public radio station here in Kansas City. One of my first job was with public radio at the University of Kansas. So again, we love radio, and that's what podcasting is now. It's radio and TV.
Yeah. Well, and I think so many people, I brought up the batching and the party and all that because this particular space has almost become a required weekly production slog, where the perception is that, I've got to record weekly and be on time and time and no sick days, no, holiday weeks or anything like that, because I have this weekly show to produce. And even still, when I talk to someone new about producing a podcast, they need to have this idea adjusted a lot of times in their head that, you can batch produce, push these episodes out to production, push them live months down the road if you're producing evergreen content or content that would still apply at that time. And if you want to produce, market reports, okay, maybe that is something you do here and there. Maybe that's not the full concept of your show. Like, there's an opportunity there to structure the podcast to fit your lifestyle and not do what you think everyone else is doing by producing a weekly show. Because I guess what I want people to really recognize is that most big creators are not just recording, on this hamster wheel. A lot of them are pre-produced.
Oh, yeah. And it's the only way we could do it because, Sam is still working and I'm not, but I've still, ever since I retired, I consult. So I've had a few clients that I do with. And then I've always had this crisis track thing in the back of my head because I always had in my contracts that whenever I left Barkley, I could take crisis track, the process, and the name with me. They still use it as well, but I could use it as well. So it was sitting there in the background, and I finally got going on it about a year and a half ago and got launched and started producing some content, build a website, and all that stuff. So the order of things is, like I said, Sam and I are meeting, 10 days or so, and we'll finalize our list and get our ass out. And then we'll schedule everybody's pre-calls, which is, again, that's going to be 12 people. So that's 12 hours of time. But we put our schedules together. And then once we've done the pre-calls, we start recording. We start recording even while we still got pre-calls to do. So the fall and our goal is always, we're done by December 31, actually December 20th, hopefully. But then we're finished. And now Evolution has all the winter and into spring to take, because they have a business they're running too. they have work every day that they're producing lots of stuff for clients. Kevin at Springboard has all time to create all the graphics. And they've been great. He created the overall look, but he changed the color scheme in season 2 to make it look different. And they just go off and they love doing all this stuff. And then we launch in May. And then the episodes are in the summer, which I think is a good time to kind of be out there with this stuff because people are traveling, they have time, they're on vacation, and they're taking their morning walk. They'll listen to an episode of Kansas City Marketing Legends.
Really great seasonal advice there. I love that. And I want to, highlight just one more thing is that you intended to kind of support the marketing industry and share these legends on the show. And even though that was a great niche and a passion project, you're also kind of accidentally attracting these other audiences that you mentioned, the people that are fans of this hyper local history and, the movement of different businesses. And, oh yeah, I remember that theme for that company or those colors, or I remember when they changed their logo. And, just different things like that the public does remember about big names. And then just the good, solid business advice from people who have been there. And so that just shows us, again, a great example that's not in the financial space, but that could be captured and tweaked and applied, is that target down, find your niche, whether it's a group of people or a message that is about the way you want to run your business or the way you help people, and hone that niche, but realize that doesn't mean no one else will follow you. No one else will come to your business or book a call with you or whatever it is. Like, you will still attract others who are very interested and who may do business with you. But that niche is so important.
Yeah, that's a great point. And since our podcast is not focused on trying to grow business, but it has the ability to bring more people in, and more people are hearing about it. And so we're a little word of mouth, social media, obviously promoting some. PRSA, the local Public Relations Society chapter, is going to have Sam and I speak at their October meeting. Actually, they're doing a special meeting. It's going to be end of the day. Again, a little happy hour time. It's just a good time to do it. People come together at the end of the day. And we're going to do a presentation on how we created the podcast, just what you and I have been talking about. We're going to go through that. So, we don't know how many people will be there, but it's open invitation. But again, it's just like another little thing that happened out of this is they invited us to do this. We didn't seek it out. They invited us to do it. And that's a way that they can contribute to us. They can host it, and they're going to host the event, food and beverage. And and they'll pay for that. Barclay's going to host us. So again, we don't have to invest anything. But we have all these people who are helping us grow this thing, which has just really been a fun part of it too.
Yeah. Well, I know that talk is going to be engaging and fun and interesting. It's always neat to hear the behind the scenes of how something was made, right? Like, it wasn't that a big show how it's made, and there's various versions of that in all industries now. So tell us a little bit about where we can find and follow you, listen to Kansas City Marketing Legends, and then, of course, check out Crisis Track.
Well, Kansas City Marketing Legends is that simple. It's kansascitymarketinglegends.com. You can actually find it by saying kcmarketinglegends.com too. And that's our website. And then we're on all the, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're everywhere. We're in, the usual suspects, Apple, Spotify, etc. The best place for people to find me is LinkedIn. I mean, I've really basically turned my LinkedIn profile, which I've had for a long time, to pretty much 24/7 crisis info. So there's a lot of content there that people can consume at their leisure. Some case studies, some tips and tricks and things like that. The only other thing they'll find on there is promotion for Kansas City Marketing Legends. So it's Crisis and Kansas City Marketing Legends on LinkedIn. And then crisistrack.com, and it's CRISISTRAK.com. There's no C, you have to have a cute name. That's how we do it in marketing. So crisistrack.com. And you go there, and there's a lot of, information there, but that's where you can enroll for just slightly less than $1,000 right now. And I spell out in detail how you build a crisis process using Crisis Track, the 5 steps I described earlier.
Thank you so much, Mike. You've shared such good information, and I think we can all learn from, some of the niching ideas, some of the, launch party ideas, different things that you've shared today. So thank you so much. Thanks for spending your time with me today on Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you walked away with one idea that helps you get more visible, increase your authority, or turn your podcast into a real lead generating machine, then your time was worth it. Before you go, let's make sure you have strong intros, outros, and a trailer for your podcast that pulls in your ideal clients. Grab the Attraction Messaging Blueprint. It gives you the formula, examples, and worksheets to make the most important segments of your show count. Download it for free right now at podcastabundance.com/attraction-messaging-blueprint.